This module covers pesticide use and safety, with this lesson discussing the directions for the use of pesticides. Our objectives include identifying where the pesticide can be used, identifying what pests are controlled by the pesticide, identifying the application interval before the crop can be harvested. In other words, how many days must elapse between when the crops are sprayed and when the crop can be harvested. And lastly, identifying the number of applications of pesticide that can be applied per season. BioAdvance does an excellent job of writing clear and concise labels. The front panel of this label contains a lot of information as covered in Lesson 1, including the manufacturer of the product formulation, and the active ingredient. All labels contain specific information in regards to what pests are controlled, where to use the pesticide, in other words, plants that can be sprayed to protect from pests, when to use the product, or to put it another way, the timing of application. The label also contains the rates to use and the plant response precautions. Also included are the entry restrictions, or how quickly people can return to the garden after application, and the harvest interval, or number of days between application and when the crop can be harvested. Many homeowners read only the part of the label that discusses the rate to use. They fail to read the entire label, missing pertinent information on how to use the product safely and effectively. An example being 7 insecticide. This particular formulation may injure Boston ivy, Virginia creeper, and maidenhair fern. Often I receive phone calls from clients that have sprayed their lawns for pests. They want to know when they can let their dogs out to relieve themselves. Labels will have the entry restrictions listed under the directions for use section of the label. In this case, the label reads, "Do not allow people or pets to enter the restricted area until sprays have dried." Before purchasing a product, make sure that the crop or plant that you are trying to protect from the pest is listed on the label. If it is not listed, you cannot use it on that crop or plant. Captain Jack's Dead Bug Brew has a very wide label. That means it can be used on a wide variety of plants, including fruits and vegetables, as well as lawns and ornamentals. In addition to the crop or plant that the product can be used on, labels are very specific as to what pests the product will control. Again, if the pest is not listed on the label, it will not control that pest. This label not only lists the pests controlled by crop, but also the maximum number of applications per year, minimum days to wait before applying again, and the minimum days to wait from last application to harvest. Another example of what plants to spray, what plants are controlled, and when to apply. This label is for a fungicide rather than insecticide like the previous label. Bonide systemic houseplant insect control is for containerized plants. You'll note under insects controlled that some pests have an asterisk after them. EPA, the regulating agency for pesticides, does not typically require efficacy data. In other words, data that proves that the product actually controls the pest. However, some states have their own regulatory agencies and may have additional requirements for pesticides. In this case, California does require efficacy data on pests. The manufacturer, Bonide, has not provided sufficient efficacy data to prove to California that the product controls any pest listed that has an asterisk after the name. As a manufacturer, it is impossible from an inventory standpoint to keep products with different labels segregated. Therefore, the asterisk after the pest name is sufficient to allow this product to be sold in California. This label tells you the application timing and instructions. It also gives instruction on how much to use depending on the size of pot or the size of plant. This product is systemic, which means it is taken up by the roots and transported throughout the plant. Therefore, an insect that feeds on the leaf will be controlled. As said previously, it's important to read the entire product label for rates, pest control, application timing, as well as do nots or precautionary statements. This particular orthene formulation will harm poplars, viburnums, and other listed plants. For products listed for edible crops, it is important to determine the harvest interval. In other words, how many days to wait from the last application to harvest for the crop you are treating. This interval is based on the days it takes to break down the product or residue on the edible portion of the plant. That is often affected by sunlight, humidity, and temperature. Well, this completes Lesson 3 of 5 for Pesticide Use and Safety Module. Listed here are sources of additional information on IPM related to this module.